Good Games Podcast, episode number 210. This is a show, of course, we talk about video games and video game-related things. I am your host, Alex Nunez, and I'm flying solo this week. So, I know it took a week off, and I don't know, I think this is more of a stable kind of schedule, so I might stick with this every other week kind of a thing for the podcast. Let's see how that goes, but I'm not thinking of keeping it as a solo show going forward. I'll still have like guests pop in here and there. And if there is something special that comes up, maybe that's like an extra bonus episode that'll pop up in the feed. So we'll see what happens in the future. But yeah, didn't want to go too long without providing another episode of stuff. I've been playing some games. So I guess why don't we get into what I've been playing this week? And I feel like everything that I've been playing this week is sort of around this very simple theme. Like they're not super complicated games, but one of the first ones that I got to check out was Pokémon Quest, which is a free-to-play game that is, I know it's on mobile, and I know I saw it on the Switch eShop as well, so that's out there too. But yeah, it's another one of the Pokemon free-to-play games, which I feel that there are a lot of them out there already. But this one had like cute cube versions of the Pokemon. I think it's only the Gen 1 Pokemon right now. But yeah, I checked it out a little bit, and I kind of fell off. I don't know if I love the whole grindy nature of the game, which I feel like I should have known already by playing some of these other, specifically like Pokemon free-to-play games. But as a whole, what the game is basically you get on this island. It's got this very cube, voxel-y type of art style, but in the Pokemon world. And you're on the island and you stumble upon a Pokemon, or you can pick your first Pokemon out of 5. So you can pick one of the first 3 original starters. So Squirtle, Charmander, and Bulbasaur. And in addition to those, you can also pick between Eevee and Pikachu. So one of those you can pick as one of your starter Pokemon, and from then on, you're kind of out and about and going to doing these little expeditions. And that's kind of like the core of the gameplay, like the actual like part of the game that you interact with. And what the expeditions are basically your Pokemon is out in this field and looking for enemies to beat. And your Pokemon will go out there by itself and find enemies to fight. And it'll auto-attack as well. But you have some minor interaction things. There are like some buttons on the bottom of the touchscreen that you can interact with. And those are certain moves that your Pokemon have at their disposal. So they'll do like normal attacks by themselves if you leave them alone, but you could also do some of their special moves. Like if you have a Charmander, you can maybe do like an Ember attack by pressing that button. And, you know, it'll do more damage, it'll do like special effects, but it is a little weird because you have to make sure that your Pokemon is like kind of pointed at the right direction, is that they are facing an enemy and they are in range of an enemy, because if you just do it while they're away from an enemy or like turned away from another, like there might be situations where they may have just defeated an enemy and then you engage the special attack and then like, hey, they didn't point to the new or to the next enemy, so now they just kind of wasted their attack. But everything is on a cooldown too, so every time you spend one of those special attacks, you have to wait a certain amount of time before that Pokemon can use another move. Even though they may have like multiple moves at their disposal, you still have to wait for the entire timer to run down before you can use any of their moves. But they'll still like do the same auto attack. Once you finish the expedition, there's like a boss at the end, and yeah, at the end of each expedition, you get a bunch of items, usually like little berries and other food stuff things, and then you also get these like stones that can slot into your Pokemon. So they kind of have like this almost like a sphere grid system sort of deal going on, where each Pokemon has like except instead of a sphere grid, it's more of an actual grid, like a square grid. So there are like different slots available, and as you level up your Pokemon, it seems like more and more slots will open up. So it seems like it's like a 9 by or 3 by 3 grid, so maybe for like a total of like 9 slots or maybe more, I forget. But first, when you first get a Pokemon, you only have access to a couple of slots, like 1 or 2. And then as you level them up, you get access to more. They'll slowly unlock. And there are, at least from what I've played so far, there are like 2 types of slots there. And one of them is for your health, or for that Pokemon's health, and then the other is for the Pokemon's attack. So each slot is like predetermined to be one of those things. It's kind of random, it seems, depending on the Pokemon. So you could have a Pokemon that has just all attack slots in their like little grids thing, and so that means you can only increase their attack power. So at the end of every expedition, or anytime you're like in the menus, you can kind of go and mess around with the kind of loadouts for your Poké's pals, and just slot in different items for them and try to maximize their power. Because the other thing is that each time you go into an expedition, there's like a number on the expedition basically saying how difficult this is and what you need. Basically how strong you need to be before you tackle this expedition. And it's just, that number is basically just a combination of the attack values and health values for your Pokemon. So you just kind of add those all together, and that's your attack, or that's your, I guess, your power level to tackle that expedition. And depending on the expedition, some of them will have like an elemental affinity. So if your Pokemon is of a certain type, so like if I guess in one area you might be fighting a lot of like water type Pokemon. So in that area, grass type Pokemon do much better. So then you get a bonus like of, I don't know, X amount, like maybe 300 extra power for your expedition, depending on how many like grass type Pokemon or something that you bring with you. You also have like a home base too that you can go to in between expeditions, and it seems like the main thing you do there is like you have this pot that you can throw some of your food things in there and set it to cook. And every like 4 or 5 expeditions, I think it varies depending on what the ingredients are or how much food you throw in there. But basically, that's the way you get Pokemon, is that you throw food on the stove, do some expeditions, and then come back once that food is done. And then eventually a new Pokemon will show up at your home base. And that's how you get Pokemon. You don't go out and catch them in the world. But yeah, eventually I think you can only have 3 Pokemon on your team per expedition. So, yeah, it's, I don't know, it's kind of simple, but then I don't love a lot of the, I guess, the RPG factors of like that grid system and the complications therein, because it seems like even if you get the same Pokemon, it's randomized like what abilities they have, and you can't, as far as I know, you can't change what like moves they have access to, but there are things in the game where you can kind of do move training in the game, which basically means you're feeding one Pokemon into the other to I guess change their move, but I don't know how you can determine what move they get. So it seems like a weird system, and I've seen that system specifically before in other of these types of specifically like Pokemon free to play games, and that's always like helped me bounce right off because I don't understand how it works, so I kind of just don't want to try and understand it or try and figure out how it all works. But yeah, it seemed okay and kind of fun for like the first maybe hour or so, but then once I realized like, oh, this is how far it goes, I'm like, I don't know if I want to keep playing this. And it does a lot of like the same like free to play stuff. So like you have like an energy system basically where you can only do X amount of expeditions before you run out of battery power, because that's how they limit you. So once you run out of battery power, you have to wait like I think like 20 or minutes or maybe half an hour for 1 pip of your battery to recharge, and you need 1 pip of battery charge to at least do 1 expedition. So it's kind of like, okay, I'll go in, do a couple expeditions, then maybe check in tomorrow or something. I don't know, but yeah, I was kind of intrigued at first with Pokemon Quest, but I don't see myself sticking with it, unfortunately. Another simple game I've been playing on my phone is a game called Footsies. Now, I am a fighting game fan, and if you follow fighting games, you probably are aware of the term Footsies, which refers to the kind of neutral play that happens in fighting games where you're kind of like you're dancing in and out of range of your opponent's like move range where they can't hit you, so that you can try and maybe edge in and kind of sneak in an attack of your own, but it's kind of like a weird back and forth that happens. And this game Footsies, is a perfect encapsulation of that. It's made by a guy named Hi-Fight, who goes on Twitter. He's kind of like famous in the FGC because he goes around and looks at a lot of tournament footage and retweets a lot of clips of like crazy things that are happening in fighting games. So he's always a good follow on Twitter in general. But now he put out this little weird, simple fighting game that you can play on your phone. And unfortunately, I think it's only available on Android. But you can also download it on PC. I'm not sure exactly how it works there, but on Android at least, it's a 2-player game, but it's only local play, which is kind of cool. So the way it works is that you play in portrait mode, like the way you would normally hold your phone, and then on the bottom of the screen, there are 3 buttons. There's a left and a right button, and then there's an attack button, and that's it. That's all you got. And then you have like a small area of the screen, like you basically have half of the screen to yourself, the bottom half, and then you see like your character and then the opponent's character. You're basically the same character. They're basically very styled down versions of Ryu from Street Fighter, so as not to, I guess, draw the ire of Capcom or ensure they are sued to hell out of it. It's close. The homage is certainly there for Ryu and Street Fighter, because he's basically a fat stick figure with a headband that blows in the wind and has a lot of the same animations that you'd kind of recognize from the Street Fighter games. But yeah, the screen is kind of split in half, so that the idea is that you and one other person are holding the phone at the same time. So you've got the bottom of the phone held, and while the other person has the top of the phone held, and they have the same setup on their side of the screen. It's just upside down so that they can see it. It's kind of cool. But it also has a mode where you can play just versus the CPU, and the CPU is actually like pretty good at kind of like feeling like you're sort of playing against a person. It's not like the broken AI of a lot of fighting games out there. But yeah, like I guess to go over what you can do in the game, I think it feels like a very good tool to kind of expose people to the neutral game in fighting games. But yeah, so as I said, left and right and an attack button, and that's it. So you can use the left and the right to move in those directions. There's no jump. And then if you hold back, you will block attacks as well. And if you are to just just press the attack button without pressing any of the directional buttons, you will do you'll do like sort of like Ryu's crouching medium kick. He just throws out he does like a crouching kick that kind of extends pretty far. But if you are pressing a direction button, either forward or backwards, you'll do sort of like Akuma's medium kick, where he just kind of like puts his knee up, and it doesn't extend super far, but it gets in there. And then you can also hold the button to get other effects. So if you were just to hold the button without directions, you would get a Ryu's donkey kick from Third Strike. And then if you hold the attack button while doing a direction, you will do a dragon punch. And that's basically it. You can also combo from the regular attacks, from like the crouching kick or the standing knee. You can combo into the donkey kick. So it's kind of cool. It teaches you a lot of fundamental stuff in a very simple way. So you're kind of like, again, dancing back and forth, trying to get in range, but also not get hit by your opponent's attacks. So you're trying to like stick out the kick because it has longer range, but if they DP it, then you're going to get blown up because the hitbox is ridiculous on that thing. So yeah, it's very cool. I find myself like playing it every now and again. It does have ads on the Android version, but I think if you pay like a one-time like 99-cent add-on, you don't have to see ads ever again. But like every 2 matches or so, you'll get an ad on the phone. I assume that does not happen on the PC version, but I have no idea. But if you Google around, you should be able to find a copy of Footsies. But yeah, Footsies is a lot of fun for what is a pretty simple thing. Stands out there like something like a dive kick, where Dive Kick was a gross simplification of like fighting games, and Footsies is another game that's kind of like that, but it's just a little bit more fleshed out than maybe Dive Kick, or it exposes other things that Dive Kick didn't worry about. But yeah, Footsies is a pretty cool thing. If you have an Android phone, maybe look it up on the store and check it out. The other thing, and the last thing that I've been playing, is a game that I've been wanting to check out for a while. I think I picked it up in the Steam sale that just happened recently, and that game is called Never Stop Sneakin'. And it is from the guy that made Dust and Elysian Tale. And damn, these games could not be more different. Whereas Dust was like a sort of like semi-serious Metroidvania style game with like pretty, like really like fleshed out melee combat. This game is more of like an homage / parody, a really hard parody of the like Metal Gear Solid, like PlayStation 1 era Metal Gear Solid specifically. And it is ridiculous in a weird way that I was not exactly expecting. Especially when you boot up the game for the first time, like you're treated to a very, again, PlayStation 1 era cutscene of this military guy in a like cargo plane, and the back of the cargo plane opens, and he kind of looks out, and his coffee mug flies out the back, and he just kind of looks out. And all dramatic like, and it's and then he just kind of just jumps out of the back of the cargo plane. I was like, oh, okay. He's like a military old like colonel man. He doesn't look like he should be in the middle of action, but he just jumped out of that plane. He was not wearing a parachute, and he went and got his cup out of the sky. Well, he looked at the cup as he was falling down, and then he landed on an aircraft carrier. And then caught the cup before it fell to the ground, which again is just goddamn ridiculous. This game is it sets a really good first impression for sure. But like actually playing the game it's a weirdly simple game. I'm kind of surprised it's not like just a mobile game, but like. The only thing that you do, like, you really don't even need buttons for this game. You just use the analog stick to move around, and that's it. But, yeah, it's basically, again, Metal Gear Solid from PlayStation 1. It's got this top-down perspective that you may be familiar with, and you're going around sort of like this stealth, but, like, also arcade style game, because it's pretty fast-moving. So you're kind of going around these areas and basically just stealth killing as many people as you can. And the way you do that is you just move into them, and then the player character will just automatically dispatch with the enemy. They'll just slice them with their like ninja blade or whatever. I forget what the thing is called. I know it has a stupid name, probably like Sneak Blade or something. But yeah, you just kind of like walk into the guy, and then they're taken care of. But that's only if you sneak up behind them. They have like the typical Metal Gear Solid like vision cones as well in front of them, which is like, it looks basically like their flashlight. So they have like the very limited field of view that you might be familiar with. And so if you happen to walk into their field of view, if you have bullets in your gun, then your guy will just automatically shoot them. But the only thing is that bullets are kind of a rare commodity, so it kind of incentivizes you to be stealthy, to be sneaky, and not get into the line of sight, even though it is not usually a problem if you're stocked up on bullets if one or two guards see you, because you'll just bam, like insta-shoot them. It's kind of cool. Because I think like in the tutorial when they're teaching you the controls, you can you walk into like 3 simultaneous vision cones at the same time in like, you know, in each direction, like in one in front of you, one and to either side of you, and you just kind of walk into their communal field of view, and then they're just all dead instantly. It's a pretty satisfying thing when it does work out. But there are other items you can pick up too, like you can pick up smoke grenades, and you can have that on hand. And if somebody sees you and you don't have a bullet, then you'll drop a smoke grenade, and I think you might just take 1 hit of health as part of that, but also it'll stun anybody in the area so that you can kind of like dispatch with them as like they're kind of discombobulated. But there's also like I think like an EMP bomb, but that works for like more of the electronic stuff, because they're as far as I've seen so far, there are security cameras as well, and there are like these weird laser turret things. So I assume if one of those spots you, you will drop an EMP if you have it, and that'll do the same thing, but for the electronic devices. But yeah, like that's basically the game. So you're kind of like going around and just walking into enemies as long as you're like outside of their field of view. And yeah, just killing them, and you get multiplier, although I'm not sure what the multiplier does because I don't think I've seen a score. But most of what I'm doing is just trying to go through all the levels and collect all the currency that's in the game, because it seems like it's sort of run based, because you do a certain amount of levels, there's a boss fight at the end, and then you kind of extract, and then you're back to your headquarters, and you're trying to build out your headquarters, but you need to get money. And so the way you get money primarily is by going into these missions and, you know, getting as much money as you can. I don't know if, again, the multiplier is tied to how much money you get, because it seems just the currency just seems to be like lying around all over the place, sort of like coins in a platformer or something. But yeah, it's you kind of go around and collect stuff, and there are sometimes like side objectives, like there are a number of packages in each level, so you're kind of incentivized to go and make sure you catch everything. But yeah, like they even with like the boss fights that I mentioned earlier, like they keep that same simple like control scheme in those boss fights, which I thought was pretty cool. So like the first boss fight you encounter is like you have to fight a helicopter. I'm like, okay, how the hell do I do that? I can't just walk into a helicopter. But every time you fight a boss, it'll tell you like in text on the screen some hints as to what to do, and the hint text on the screen was like, hey, take cover, and there are like these big like shipping containers that you can kind of take cover behind while the helicopter shoots you. It becomes at that point sort of like a bullet hell kind of game. And when you survive the first wave, then a rocket launcher drops out, and you have to go out and get that rocket launcher while avoiding bullets. And then you get the rocket launcher, and the only way it fires is if you are standing still for a few seconds. So you have to make sure you're in a safe spot, or that you have kind of predetermined, okay, you see where the bullets are, or maybe you're in between volleys of bullets, so you have time to get the shot off. But yeah, you stay in still for a couple seconds, and then you get a shot off. There's another boss type where it's like these Roomba things. I can't tell exactly what they are, but there's like 2 or 3 of them at a time, and they're at the same time there are these consoles. There's like a set of 3 consoles in that boss room, and if you activate all 3, it'll kind of like set up like an electrical grid that is kind of like connected to each other, so it sort of forms like a triangle of electricity. And if any one of those drones gets through or passes through the path of the electric field, they will get disoriented, and then that is your time to kind of hit them with the blade and then you kill them. And you have to do that for each one of those, I guess, death Roombas or whatever the hell they are. But again, yeah, they do some very interesting things even with the boss fights that I've seen so far. But yeah, as far as I know, like each level is sort of like randomly generated, so not every run is going to be exactly the same. But yeah, I don't know. It's I'm still kind of feeling my way through it. I'm not sure what the end game is. The story is just as ridiculous as maybe like that opening sequence was, because the bad guy you're chasing, the reason you're chasing him is because he kidnapped all of the presidents. All of them. At first I thought it was like all of the presidents across the world, but it seems that he has a time machine and maybe has gotten all of the American presidents throughout time. I don't know what he's going to do with them. I think he's just keeping them on hand so that he can be the only president. I don't know. It's a whole fucking weird thing. The game is, again, ridiculous as hell, which is a thing I like. And I don't know, yeah, the gameplay is really satisfying, even for how simple it is. So I don't know. I'm curious to dig deeper, build out my underground HQ, and hopefully see what happens when I can maybe take down the bad guy. Because it seemed like they kind of implied that since the bad guy has a time machine, if I were to make any progress as like sort of the good guy trying to take him down, that he would just activate his time machine and undo any of the work that I had done. So I'm curious what happens there. It seems like it's maybe sort of like almost like a clicker game in a way, where you had to like proceed to a certain point, and then everything gets reset to the beginning again. So I'm like, I'm curious how that all works out. But yeah, Never Stop Sneakin' is pretty cool. Also, the best part that I forgot to mention is that in with the whole Metal Gear Solid theme, they have their own version of the Snake Eater song where it's like "Never Stop Sneaking" are the main lyrics to that song, which I'm gonna try and see if I can find and put it on at the end of this episode, because it's just, I don't know, after a while, like after a couple of levels of playing the game, I was like humming that in my head. I was like, Jesus Christ, this is really good. They they spared no expense, and they have a very you can tell how much they love Metal Gear Solid, because they very faithfully replicated a lot of it while also poking fun of it as well. It's pretty good. So yeah, Never Stop Sneaking is, I know it's available on PC because that's where I'm playing, but I have seen it on Switch as well. I don't think it's on any of the other consoles, unfortunately. But yeah, that's it for what I've been playing. But I guess with that, we can roll into headlines and see what's been going on in news and stuff. I know there's been a lot of stuff that's been going on over the past 2 weeks, so I'm sorry if I missed anything major. I think I got the important bits, but holler at me if I missed something that you wanted me to discuss, and we can rectify that. But before we get to headlines proper, definitely head over to innercitygeeks.com and follow along with our show notes, because we got links to everything that we're going to talk about, so you can read along and get more details on the stories that I'm going to discuss. But first up this week, something sort of simple, something kind of cool. Steam rolled out a minor update, and which has been in beta testing for a bit, but they rolled out their new like chat update for Steam, which it feels nowadays like, hey, we need to catch up with Discord because Discord is taking over, so let's make this thing like Discord because everybody's on Discord. I don't know, it's weird. But yeah, like Steam is being a little bit more Discord-like. They've updated their chat client, specifically their chat client, and not any other part of the Steam client, which I thought was a little bizarre, because the first time the update booted up and installed and everything, it was just, you see the chat window open up separately, and then you have the main Steam window, and it feels like there's just a minor bit of like disparity between how they look, because the new chat window is all like snazzy and it's got like this cleaner UI and more modern UI, whereas Steam is still, for the most part, like, you know, the Steam that we've come to know and love over the years, and it hasn't changed that much. And it's just, again, very strange that they would just update one and not give a whole UI overhaul to the rest of the Steam client. Although I understand that is a massive undertaking to just refresh all of the UI for the Steam client. But again, it's just kind of weird that of that disparity. Like, hey, we've got the new and you've got a little bit of the old at the same time, and it's just weird to see it happen on the same screen. But yeah, they rolled out the new chat update, and again, kind of chasing Discord, but it's got some snazzy new features, like mainly what everybody was looking for. It was more GIF support and videos and embeds and things like that, basically tying into the web and the memes and the social medias and all that. But it also seems like you can also have like chat rooms with like groups, and again, you know, pretty much anything that Discord can do, Steam is trying to do as well. So you can have like voice calls and things like that are more easily accessible. Although a lot of that stuff was in the old chat client, but again, just kind of looked old and was sort of simple. But I don't know, I don't use the chats features in Steam as is a lot, so I don't know how much I'm going to use it now, because again, most of the time I'm personally in Discord. So I'm hoping that anybody that does use it a lot will like the new changes, although I'm sure a lot of people will be complaining about changes, because that's what happens on the internet when change rolls around, is that people are not going to be happy about these changes. But yeah, that's finally happening. We're getting at least some updates to Steam. I'm kind of excited with like stupid updates like this. I like seeing the new stuff come out, especially if it's something that I've been seeing for like years already, and it feels like it hasn't changed. Although I'm sure it has changed a lot in the back end. Steam seems like it's been the same thing for a long time, and I don't know. I'm kind of looking forward to like a UI change for Steam. See how that holds up. But I guess speaking of updates, the perennial No Man's Sky also got a pretty big update themselves, dubbed the next update. Although this headline is not really detailing all the new stuff in that next update, but there is a link to that article in the article that we linked to for some like meta nonsense for you at home. But yeah, like the next update included a lot of features that people have been wanting. More character customization. Multiplayer was like the big thing, and unfortunately, that's the thing we have to harp on right now, is that the multiplayer is not available for everybody, unfortunately. So for whatever reason, specifically for the GOG version of the game, the one that's sold on GOG.com, that version of the game will not have any of the multiplayer features available in this free update if you have the game already. Or if you buy the game new from GOG.com, you're not going to be able to play multiplayer, unfortunately. They had a post on GOG.com from Hello Games specifically, and they kind of explained that they are a small studio and networking and multiplayer is hard. I'm paraphrasing here. This is not a direct quote from them. But yeah, basically, there was a lot of complications, it sounded like, in order to get this going. But I don't know. I was kind of surprised that there was even a differentiation between the GOG version of the game and I guess the rest of the PC population. I'm not sure. GOG is kind of famous for having all of their games that are sold on their store to be DRM free. And pretty much everything else, maybe aside from like Humble Bundle, I'm sure they're like DRM free as well in most cases. But like Steam is a form of DRM, for better or for worse, but it's a form of DRM that a lot of people seem to be okay with. But yeah, like Steam version has the multiplayer features, and I don't know, I just found it odd that it wasn't already like that there was even a reason to be separate from like any other PC version of the game. So I don't know if like there is a factor of the DRM playing a part in all of this as to why it like the Steam version can't talk to the GOG version, even though they're both on the PC. It's weird. Like I don't know if I'm a fan of this sort of fragmentation of even just one platform. Like we already have to deal with it between like other platforms. Like I can't play on PC with PlayStation 4 people. Why can't I play with certain PC people? This feels like a bridge too far. I don't know. And if this has been a thing before, why is this coming up now? Like, are there other versions of like multiplayer games on GOG.com that are not playable with like other people on the PC? Like if you bought the game through Humble Bundle, or if you bought it through Steam or other like PC suppliers of digital keys, can you play with them? I don't know. This is bizarre. It feels like this should have been a thing before, but it's weird that is again No Man's Sky is kind of at the center of this. But yeah, they are saying that it's not going to happen. So the GOG version of the game is going to get multiplayer eventually. They haven't said when exactly yet, but it has been delayed. So a lot of people are kind of up in arms about it, and I think rightfully so. The only unfortunate thing is that Hello Games themselves were not offering refunds for the game, but thankfully the good guys at GOG, they said that they were going to offer refunds for the game because of this multiplayer kind of fiasco. They know that a lot of people are out there are upset about it, that they can't play the game that they paid for online with this new feature that came out. So GOG is paying out of their own pocket for any refunds that people may want for the game. So I think that's cool on their part. And yeah, I keep wanting to buy more of my games from GOG because they're pretty cool set of people, and they again, like them doing things like this is only nothing but just goodwill on their part, and I kind of want to support that. But yeah, I don't know, it's just another chapter in the whole insanity of No Man's Sky. But I'm glad that the game is getting better still. Like they are working on it, they are improving it, and hopefully this new update does appease a lot of people. I had my time with the game. I enjoyed it for when I played it, but I don't know if this is enough to get me back though, because I don't know. I feel like a lot of the core stuff in the original game is probably still there in some form or fashion, and I still am not interested in that aspect of the game. But again, I think I had like a good 10 or 12 hours of the game when it first came out, so I'm not. I have no regrets about my time with No Man's Sky. But yeah, hopefully this makes people happy. That's all I want. I want people. You should be playing games to be happy, not to be pissed off and complaining on the internet. That's just my 2 cents. But how about we shift gears into the world of fighting games for a minute? One of the big things that happened recently was some Dragon Ball FighterZ news, and first of which I don't have here in the headlines, but I figure I might as well talk about it now since I'm going to talk about this thing. But 2 new DLC characters were announced for Dragon Ball FighterZ, and they are both regular-ass Goku and regular-ass Vegeta, and I personally could not be any less excited because, goddammit, I want more. I want characters that are not Goku and characters that are not Vegeta, because we got plenty of those already in the game. But here we are. We've got another Goku and another Vegeta coming to Dragon Ball FighterZ, I think in early August. They haven't said a specific date yet, but August is the time frame. Yeah, I've seen the trailer. It's not linked here, unfortunately, but the saving grace is that they do at least have like different move sets and stuff, so they're not going to be exactly the same, so I'm happy about that. Goku has his Spirit Bomb. That's cool. He flies in on his Nimbus, which is a cool nod to Saiyan Saga era Goku and Vegeta. Vegeta's got the old big-ass shoulder straps or shoulder pads of the original Saiyan armor, and he's got his tail still, which is weird, but accurate. I'm just feeling like if you have the tail, why doesn't he change into his big monkey form? But I don't know if that's something that they're holding on in their pocket. But the main thing I wanted to talk about Dragon Ball FighterZ is that with this update, I don't know if it's necessarily with the DLC update or it's going to be close to it at least. But after Evo, which is I think a week and a half from now or so, they're also going to throw out a balance update for the game, which I think has been sorely needed. So they had a stream and they basically said that all of 4 characters in the game will be touched. So they will be getting balance changes, and the way they described it is that all these balance changes are basically going to be buffs for everybody. I'm hoping that these are varying degrees of buffs, because some of the characters that are in here are already pretty they're characters 1 and 2, probably Perfect Cell and Kid Buu, are in the list of characters to get buffed, and they're already really fucking good. So I don't know what else you would do to them to buff them, but my only hope is that all the other lower tier characters just get buffed that much more to be in line with those top tier characters. But yeah, it's probably easier to say the characters that aren't getting any changes or any major changes, and those 4 characters that aren't getting touched are Super Saiyan Goku, Super Saiyan Vegeta, Goku Black, and Adult Gohan. According to them, they are basically the standard of balance for the game, whatever that phrase means. That was a direct quote, standard of balance. So they are where, I guess, they want those characters to be. They are playing the way they are meant to be played. It's just the rest of the cast that needs to be kind of readjusted, I guess. So it'll be an exciting kind of day when balance change happens, because I want to see what all the changes are and how the meta will shake out from this. But yeah, again, it's just ridiculous that Cell and Kid Buu are going to get buffs. But here we are. Hopefully, I don't know. Again, I'm just hoping for some major changes. I want more character diversity, specifically in tournaments, because I personally don't play the game a whole lot, but I do watch a decent amount of it, and you see a lot of the same characters over and over again. There are a decent amount of characters that you just never see in tournament play, and it'll be cool to see much more diversity in the game going forward. So hopefully they are able to do that, although I have heard things about ArcSys games in the past where they're not great at the balance change thing, so time will tell what happens. But sort of related to Evo and fighting games, we've also got another headline where they finally announced what the schedule is going to be for Finals Day. So Evo weekend again is coming up in 2 weekends from now. And yeah, Sunday is the big finals day. Everything happens in the Mandalay Bay. No other games are played. It's just all of the main games, except for a few exceptions. So the games that will be played on Sunday for finals will be in order. We're going to start from the beginning of the day. Probably, I think it's usually like 10 o'clock in the morning or something over there. So the day is going to begin for finals with Guilty Gear Xrd Rev 2. And then we'll move on to Super Smash Bros. Melee. And then Tekken 7, Dragon Ball FighterZ. And we'll end the night with Street Fighter V Arcade Edition. That is the order for finals night in the Mandalay Bay. And yeah, there are maybe some notable exceptions. It is a little weird. I don't know what the scene is in terms of like, especially the Arc Sys and the anime games. Guilty Gear feels like it's maybe on the way out. I don't know. I'm sure it's still a great game. I like playing that game when I get a chance to. But you know, Blaze Blue cross tag is like the new hotness, and it's kind of strange that it's not there on Sunday night. But again, it has only recently come out, so maybe there wasn't a lot of time for them as the Evo coordinators to kind of judge how big of a game it was or how important it was going to be in the scene. I don't know. But yeah, Guilty Gear has made it into Sunday night above Blaze Blue cross tag, and Injustice 2 is not going to happen on Sunday night, which is also sort of maybe a sign of the times where Injustice 2 is kind of waning. It feels like that like NRS schedule where like every 2 years, like okay, NRS games are done because everybody's expecting the new NRS game, which they haven't really announced yet. So Injustice 2 feels like it's in a weird space where people have been expecting the new game to come out or have been announced already, but it hasn't happened yet. So I don't know if that has affected any of their decision making with the Sunday night choice. But I don't know if Tekken 7 has made it onto Sunday night before, and I think it totally deserves being there because Tekken is pretty hype. Watching finals for that game, goddamn, this is a really good watch. If you have not, or if you're not super into fighting games, Tekken 7 is a lot of fun to watch, at least. There was kind of some discussion where if some people were like, you know what, the mainlining game at EVO should be the one with the most entrants, and I think Dragon Ball had the most entrants, but only by a little bit. But yeah, like they're sticking with their guns. Street Fighter V Arcade Edition is the main game. So yeah, I'm personally fine with that. I have no qualms with that. I like Street Fighter, obviously. I've said it before. I play that game all the time, basically. But yeah, I don't know. EVO seems like it seems like it would be a break from tradition if they were not to have a Street Fighter game as the main game. And I don't know if there are any other factors as part of that. Like, I don't know if they have a deal with Capcom where they're paying them to have like the main show floor, and there's probably still that maybe ESPN is also going to televise the Street Fighter V finals. So maybe there are other factors at play here. I don't know, but yeah, I don't have that big of a deal with Street Fighter V being the main game, even though it might not have the most entrants, but it is up there in terms of entrants. So it's not like it's unfounded or it doesn't deserve it. Obviously, there are a couple of games missing from Sunday night, so they will be happening on Saturday for their finals. They did say specifically that there will be no finals on Friday, which I think is great because it feels like it's like EVO is just happening or just starting on Friday, so it feels weird when there are finals happening on Friday. So yeah, all the finals will be happening on Sunday and Saturday, and the 3 games that didn't make it on Sunday are going to happen on Saturday. So that is Blaze Blue Cross Tag Battle and Injustice 2 and Smash Brothers for Wii U. Some people were asking specifically about Smash Brothers for Wii U because it was, I think, on Sunday last year. And I think Joey Cuellar, one of the organizers of EVO, basically said that they put it on Sunday, they gave it a try, and nobody showed up in the arena for that game. So I was like, oh wow, that sucks. So yeah, that's basically the reason no one showed up. Where was the community that wanted to see that game? I don't know. So if people complain, then that's why. So I don't know. You gotta show up to support your scene. That's all I can say. But the last thing I wanted to mention in headlines is there was a little fan film making the rounds, and they finally did it. They put Nathan Fillion as Nathan Drake in a sort of movie, in a sort of film kind of thing, even though it is a short film. But it was actually like pretty well done. In case you haven't seen it, this link that we provide will have the link to the video in its entirety, so you can see the whole little short film. And yeah, Nathan Fillion does a pretty good job as Nathan Drake, and the whole thing is shot pretty well. I was kind of surprised too how well Steve Lang worked as Sully. I remember him from like the Avatar movie, and he doesn't seem like a very Sully-like character, but he pulled it off in the short. Although he didn't have a lot to do in the movie, in the short movie. He's basically in the Jeep most of the time, talking to Nate in his ear and chomping on his cigar and just looking through the binoculars and just, I don't know, just saying stuff. He does so little, but yeah, it's not. It's not great. It's not like high art or anything. It's not like the best thing ever, but it's a pretty well done thing. And towards the end, they do have like an homage to the gameplay of the game, because they almost emulate the third person camera from the games as Nathan Fillion as Nathan Drake is going to start in a little gun scene, like just action scene, shooting down enemies and stuff. And yeah, it was again, really well done for what it is, and man, it was. I'm kind of glad they got this kind of out there, because it's a cool piece. I like it. As a fan of Uncharted and as a fan of Nathan Fillion, it was cool to see. But that's it for headlines this week. And I guess we'll just roll into some new and upcoming releases. Since I missed last week, I'll go over that list as well. But again, since it's like 2 weeks combined, and there hasn't been a lot of like major stuff coming out, I'm gonna kind of condense the list and curate it a little bit. Hopefully that's okay. If you got any problems with that, maybe, I don't know, let me know. Or if you have any other suggestions, again, just hit me up. Hit us up on the Twitter and the email, which I'll provide at the end of the show. But you should know that as well if you're also a fan of the show. But how about we talk about what's been coming out last week and this week. So first up, the week of July 17th, which was last week, we had Adventure Time Pirates of the Enchiridion for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. I hope I said that right. Enchiridion. That sounds right. I don't know. We've also got Far Cry 5 Lost on Mars DLC, obviously for Far Cry 5, for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. I have not seen this, but it sounds like almost like on the level with God, what was it called? It was like that Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. That's what it was. That crazy DLC where they just took the Far Cry 3 engine and just made this crazy thing. And they're doing the same thing with Far Cry 5, except now, hey, we're going to Mars because why not? I don't know. It sounds ridiculous. But I'm glad that they're having fun making those things, because it seems really cool. Also, last week was Let's Sing 2018 for PlayStation 4 and Switch. This is pretty major. Sonic Mania Plus finally came out for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. That came out as both a standalone product and or DLC if you already have the base version of Sonic Mania. So they made a really good Sonic game even better, which, it doesn't sound right, but they did it. That's pretty cool. So yeah, I need to pick that up. I need to actually finish Sonic Mania, because I got stuck on a boss early on, or like midway through, and I was like, I'm not going to play this again, but I think I should go back, because Sonic Mania was really fucking dope. Also, what came out last week was Tempest 4000 for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. League Bowling Arcade Archives and Neo Geo for the Xbox One and Switch. Nidhogg 2 is now out for the Xbox One. It's about damn time. And finally, for last week, Thumper got a physical edition for you physical collectors out there for both the PlayStation 4 and the Nintendo Switch. Thumper is my goddamn jam. That game will murder your thumbs because it is just so goddamn crazy and intense. But I guess that will bring us to this week's new releases for the week of July 24th. And the first game we've got is No Man's Sky is now out for the Xbox One, coinciding with their big next update. So that's kind of cool that finally Xbox can join in on the party. But thankfully, I guess, they came in or they get to play the finished product of this game, I hope. So that's they got a good deal out of it, I think. All the Xbox players. Also out this week is the Mega Man X Legacy Collection 1+2. I believe those are two separate collections. They had to split up the things. I don't know. That is available for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. I have been hearing some weird things, rumblings about them. I don't know if they are on par with the old Legacy Collection. I could be wrong. I don't know, but maybe just keep an eye out. Make sure that is on the level. Also out this week is Semblance for the Nintendo Switch, The Banner Saga 3 for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. And finally, Crossing Souls is now available for the Nintendo Switch. And that's going to do it for another episode of the Good Games Podcast. Thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out with me. Again, I don't plan on continuing to be in complete solitude. I'll have guests here and there. But if you got any questions or suggestions or anything, definitely hit us up. You can find more episodes of the Good Games Podcast at our home, innercitygeeks.com. You can find all our show notes and links to everything we talk about and links on how to subscribe to the show in different formats, such as YouTube. Like, hey, you like YouTube, we're on there as well. You can subscribe and like and comment all the way over there. Hey, if you're on innercitygeeks.com too, you can leave a comment about the podcast on there as well. You can hit us up on Twitter. We're at Good Game Podcast. Or if you want to send us an email, you can do that too at goodgamespodcast@gmail.com. And with that, I think that's about it for this show. If I could ask one more favor, hit us up on iTunes, find us in the iTunes store, and leave us a review. It helps a lot. It helps get more eyeballs on the show and more ears on the show as well to listen and spread the good word about the Good Games Podcast. But that would be very helpful if you could do that. I know it is annoying to go into the iTunes store and log in and all that, but it would be greatly appreciated. And with that, I think that's another episode of the Good Games Podcast in the bag. Until next time, guys, good games.